All right, so we're recording today's session. Again, thank you all so much for joining us. Please sign in the chat with your name and your agency. Thank you again for spending your Thursday, May 6th morning with us here at Coffee and Quality. So today our ground rules are simple for Coffee and Quality. We always have these. So this is a safe place to share and learn. It's okay to share, meet everybody's feedback and perspective with a non-judgmental stance, be open and honest, and respect one another. It's your role to participate, so please share your knowledge, experience, opinion. Everybody has something to offer and give. And then, as this is a virtual space, I encourage you to share video if you're comfortable. But if you're not, that's okay. I completely understand. We'll go into breakout rooms a couple of times today, and so if you're comfortable sharing video there, that's also great. But definitely want you to share out, unmute yourself when the moment strikes. So thank you again. If you don't already know, we have a United Way of Greater Houston Teams account. And in that Teams account, we invite all of our nonprofit partners to join us there. We have different channels, and one of them is our Coffee and Quality channel. And that's actually where I will share the slides and the recording from today. We also share quite a bit of resources throughout the month, throughout the days. So please log in over there. And if you don't have access, just share you can, in the chat, you can put your email address, and I will be happy to add you into our Teams account so you have access to all that information. So with that, I want to start off today. Today we're talking about CQI best practices. And so with that, I want to do a little Minty poll to warm us up. So if you're familiar with Minty, you just grab your phone or open up another browser on your computer and go to www.minty, that's MENTI.com, and enter the code 839-8397-3576. And you should see your first question there on the board. So that question is, which vehicle best describes your CQI culture? Are you walking? You don't even have a vehicle? And hey, let's be honest here, because I don't know who's saying what, so it's all good. Are you a DeLorean? Are you living in the past? Are you a minivan? You're kind of all over the place. Are you a Toyota Corolla? Maybe you're steady and reliable with your CQI culture. Or are you an Aston Martin? Are you the high end, top of your game? I'm gonna give folks a little bit to respond, but it looks like we got quite a bit of minivans happening here. So if you have any questions about getting into Minty, feel free to drop it in the chat, or you can go to minty.com, and the passcode is 83973576. I will give a few more moments. Looks like quite a few people are still voting. I love it. Love seeing the voting coming in. But still, minivan. Minivan is at the lead. Yes. Close behind it is a Toyota Corolla, so steady and reliable. But minivan, kind of all over the place. That grocery getter, the grocery getter. If you haven't heard that before, that's what reminds me of the minivan. Oh, congrats to that Aston Martin. I know. I would love to know who's the Aston Martin in the group. No pressure to share, but that's great to see. There's one. And 3 that are walking. Hey, I mean, that's the reality. Some of us, it's a journey with your CQI culture. So good to kind of see we're all in different spots of it. So we have about 50 people that have voted. Thank you. If you have more votes coming in, and let me drop it in the chat again for those that are just joining, but it's Minty, and then you got the code. Great. Okay, so let's go on to our next question. This one's, let's use one word. What one word is your biggest challenge with CQI? So in one word, what's your biggest challenge with CQI? See, here we go. Consistency, communication, time, training. Love it. You have 3 words options you can do. So Feel free. If there's a couple of words that come to mind, you can use those blanks to fill them in. So your biggest challenges, but looks like consistency is really kind of coming to the top for everybody. We're not in that alone with that consistency challenge for sure. Focus, time. Ooh, time's coming up. Yeah, we're going to talk about time as a best practice for CQI. So glad that that's coming up as a challenge, because that's definitely something that's needed as a best practice. Data quality, yes. Buy-in. Buy-in's another important aspect of CQI best practices. Communication, capacity, follow through. Folks are still voting. Give a few more moments for folks. So we started with challenges, so easy to identify our challenge sometimes, because that's, kind of what's gnawing at us. Give another moment. Training, follow throughs popping up, follow up. So the bigger the word, the more people are saying that word. So some other kind of ones that are kind of in the smaller font: fidelity, vision, staff. Great. Okay, let's go to our next one. So on one side, we have our challenge. On the other side, what's your biggest strength with CQI? In one word, but you have three options you can put there. What's your biggest strength? Determination, knowledge, passion. Oh, love that passion's coming in. Systems, data. Here comes data. Your data is your biggest strength. Yeah, buy-in, system, staff, great minds. Yes, the people. Yeah, people that are part of your CQI are your biggest strength. Interest, plethora of data. Yeah, data is really a strength of yours. Great. Dedication, metrics, smart staff, passion, data, staff. I love that staff and team are coming up. That's something we talk about a lot at United Way, about that CQI team, the people that are part of your culture being really important to the work of your CQI. So thank you all so much. Oh gosh, I did not mean to share that. Sorry. So there we go. Here we are with our CQI biggest strength. Thank you all so much. I'm gonna drop the Minty code. I'm gonna drop out of Minty, and we're gonna continue on, because it looks like data and staff have really popped up to the top. So thank you. All right. So for those of you who are new to us for CQI, United Way of Greater Houston defines continuous quality improvement as the systematic use of data to improve the effectiveness of programs and services and to communicate their value. And so anytime we here at United Way talk about CQI, this is what we mean. We're referencing this definition. And for me, this definition really has three parts. The systematic use of data. Data is at the foundation of the work, but it's not just any old data. It's really data that's collected systematically, that's part of a process, that there's a plan for it. That's really at the heart of this, in my opinion. And then what are we doing with that data? So we're using that data to improve something, improve the effectiveness, enhance, strengthen our programs and services, the work that we're doing. And then we communicate the value. I think we sometimes leave off that end part about communicating the value when we think about CQI and when we talk about it, but it's right there in the definition. So it's at the core of CQI. So CQI is a formalized, human-driven process. It's cyclical, and it's not about an expensive software system. And I love that you guys really lifted up the strength of your CQI, is that it's the team, it's the staff, it's the people. And that's what it's truly about. It's truly about your team that's coming together to look at your data, talk about it, and then the value of their input. So the CQI process is cyclical. It begins with service delivery, and then it goes as part of service delivery, you're collecting data. And then you review your data with your CQI team, who makes recommendations, which may be the basis for program modifications and planning that's implemented. And then the service delivery begins again. So it's very cyclical. And then it's important to remember that this process is dynamic, it's alive, it's evolving. You should feel okay updating your processes as you learn, the more, and what makes something good and what makes something bad, like being able to adjust and pivot as needed. So within CQI, process, there are 8 core components to support and maintain a CQI process. So the core components of a strong CQI process start with leadership buy-in. And you guys were kind of talking about that. It came up on both. It came up on the challenge and the strengths you were seeing. But right at the top, leadership buy-in and support for sustaining an environment focused on CQI is critical. So without leadership buy-in, it's hard to sustain. How does this system sustain beyond one single employee's desire to improve the work? So CQI has to be embedded within the agency's culture. So every CQI culture needs a diverse and dedicated CQI team with a clearly defined leader, roles, and the authority to make changes. They should regularly meet to assess results and recommend improvements. The CQI team should include a wide variety of staff. And so I say wide because it should touch every department. If you have an agency culture, every department from your agency should be on this agency team. And then it needs to include a variety of staff going deep into maybe executive leadership, program leadership, direct staff, indirect staff, support staff. You should have all kinds of staff levels on the CQI team. So it's wide and deep. And then also taking into consideration, should stakeholders serve on your CQI team, clients or volunteers? Who else should be at that table as a part of the CQI team? Another core component is the CQI process needs to be memorialized with a formalized CQI plan. That's your playbook for CQI. That way anybody can pick up and learn and better understand your CQI culture. Along with that, the CQI process uses data. I said data is the foundation. The data should be directly connected to your program service components and critical to the mission of your organization. And I add that critical to the mission of your organization because we all kind of learned in the time of COVID or really any disaster that it's like, why are we collecting this data? Is it relating back to our mission? Is it critical? Because if not, it's going to drop at the wayside. And I think we probably all experienced that. Things that fell to the wayside weren't mission critical. And so your data you collect, and that's part of your CQI process, really should be mission critical. Because if not, why are you collecting it? And then with that data, the CQI process includes setting goals and targets that build on annual successes and challenges. They should have a strategic intent, and they should be based on kind of an overall planning effort. Another core component is that the CQI process leverages and incorporates client and community feedback. There should be an opportunity for clients, for your stakeholders to provide their impact reviews of their experience in your work that's then factored into the improvement process. So another core component is the CQI process should be based on sound research and implementation of industry best standards and best practices. So you all do different work and there's all some rhyme or reason to why you're doing the things you're doing, and that should be baked in best practices and your industry standards. And then the last core component, but that is certainly not least, is that the CQI culture is supported by ongoing training and learning opportunities. So we want to continue, just as we look at what's the best way to provide our service, we should also take that into consideration for what's the best way that we're collecting our data or using this information. So that ongoing learning around your CQI process. So I hit you with quite a bit of core components. We're recording today's session, and yeah, we'll have these slides available after the session on Teams for sure. So now I want us to kind of take a moment and process together. And so we're going to go into breakout rooms. And so here in the breakout rooms, I want to remind us all of the ground rules. So the ground rules for the breakout session are always like our coffee and quality ground rules. So participate. It is super easy to fade away into the background in a breakout session, especially a large breakout room. But I strongly encourage you to participate in your breakout rooms discussion. That'll just really enhance the experience for everyone. And then when you participate, remember that it's a safe space to share your knowledge and learning experience. And then also, if everybody's participating, remember to share the air. So lean in if you tend to lean out, and lean out if you tend to lean in a lot. So that way we all have that. But I see a question came in through the chat that I might have missed. Yes, I did miss did I miss a question? Oh, sorry, Alicia, all the way back at the top on the please go over what you mean by service delivery. So before we go in the breakout rooms, I want to help answer her question. So I think she's referencing here for service delivery, and that's the work that you do. So maybe you're a food pantry and you provide, bags of food for individual. That's your service delivery. Maybe you're a behavioral health provider and you provide counseling services. That's your service delivery. Or you're a financial coach doing financial coaching, providing financial education. That's the service delivery. So it's really kind of what is your program doing? That's the service delivery. Okay. Hope that helped to answer. Sorry I missed your question. Alrighty. So back to the breakout rooms. Okay, so we are going to go into breakout rooms, but this one is unique where you get to pick your breakout rooms. I'm going to have 3 breakout rooms. There's a small nonprofit where you could talk with folks who are coming from that small nonprofit where they have less than 20 employees. Or you can go to a medium-sized nonprofit where they have about 21 to 100 employees. Or you could go to the large nonprofit where it's over 100 employees. Let's say you have 50 employees and you're like, but Jessica, I consider us a small nonprofit. That's cool. Go to the small nonprofit one. This is your choice. I'm going to open the breakout rooms. You'll have about 15 minutes to discuss of the CQI core components, discuss and share what are your rows. So what's your success? What's your thorn? What's your challenge? Or what's your bud? What do you see as your potential? So you see this here on the screen, but I know if some of you, if you've been to Coffee and Quality before, you know I will use a Google slide so folks can have this, kind of have a central space to share and discuss. And so here we are. So many of you are here. So great to see you on the Google slide. So the first slide right here is the core components. So you have that with you when you go into your breakout room. And then you can see there's a grouping for small nonprofits. So they're the green shade. You're going to want to use this slide to talk about your rose, your thorn, and your bud. Here's the media nonprofit where you can talk about, you have your slides as well. And then here's the large nonprofit. Everybody can take notes or you can designate one person to take notes. It's totally up to you guys. I have the chat open, so in case you can't find the option to join which breakout room you want to go into, just put it in the chat and I'm happy to move you over there. But you'll have about 15 minutes to discuss, what's your rose, what's your bud, and what's your thorn when we take into consideration those 8 core components of CQI. Before I open the breakout rooms, are there any other questions? Not seeing any puzzled faces or hands raised. Okay. All right, here we go. I'm gonna open the breakout rooms and I'll see you guys in about 15 minutes. And if you don't see the option to join a breakout room, just let me know your name in the chat and where you want to go and I will send you over. But I see people going to breakout rooms, so this is a good sign.
Jessica, I'm driving. Will you put me in the medium breakout room, please?
Is that Stephanie Lopez?
No, this is Carly Morgan.
Oh, hi, Carly. Sorry. You sound just like Stephanie
No
Lopez.
worries. Ooh, I'll take that as
Yes. Happy to move you over there.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. The breakout room time goes fast. You had a good 15 minutes, but that time flies when you're in a good discussion. And from the Google slides, I can tell there was a lot happening in each breakout room, a lot of great discussion going on. So it's about 6 more minutes. Everybody's going to join in. Let me reshare screen so we can all look together. Because I would like for one group to report out, and I'm going to pick, if you don't mind. So I would love, thank you all so much for coming back in. Hopefully you all had good discussions in your breakout room. And we want to start, I would love to hear a report out from the small nonprofit. So if you were in that breakout room, would love to hear a little bit about what your roses were, what your thorns were, and what are your buds. Anyone?
I can speak for the small nonprofit group.
Thank you.
Our roses were having system in place, having lots of data, and we had lots of positive anecdotal evidence of successful programming. One person mentioned transitioning to electronic documentation made things a lot more efficient. And I think just with COVID and everything the last year, a lot of us have improved our ability to do that. Thorns included wearing multiple hats. So it's just sometimes data is one more priority to add on top of other ones. So it's hard to focus and give it the attention it needs. It's nice when we can have outside individuals look at data, but can be hard to do. And even including volunteers who aren't always on site, making sure they're on our CQI team and they know what's going on, that's hard. We need more paid data entry and data management staff, because some of it is just getting in the weeds and cleaning up the data. There's no standardized enforced data collection process. Sometimes collecting outcomes, it's easy to collect outputs, but outcomes requires a lot of work and time. And many times one person is carrying the organization, keeping an eye on stats and quality checking. And then as buds, we saw potential in getting wider input from volunteers, having volunteers collect data, and just even having conversations like this help. It's like the rising tide lifting all ships. And there is a desire to change and improve the quality of work.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing out. I mean, I'm hearing you guys and then also kind of watching the other groups kind of type in what they were putting and what was coming up from there. I'm seeing some similarities. So hopefully you'll, kind of venture over and see what was going on in the medium nonprofit, large nonprofit, because while there's different sizes and there's different challenges and strengths, there's also some similarities, some common threads. So thank you guys so much. So we're going to continue on and kind of look at these core components a little closer. So here we see the CQI culture. So the agency leadership, which includes the CEO and the board, set the tone for the CQI culture. We've seen staff try to develop a culture without a lot of executive leadership buy-in, but those efforts really fail. And United Way tries to help this along by adding CQI requirements into our formal service provider agreements, which are basically our contracts for funding. So we try to provide that like importance and signal it through that avenue. But the other ways we can see leadership show that they are bought into this is as new staff are hired. Nonprofits can use onboarding or orientation programs to demonstrate the organization's commitment to learning and to CQI, to help signal that to employees so they can understand how the agency is using data to benefit their own role and then the organization. Another way is including expectations about reviewing data and using data in agency statements, as well as part of employee job descriptions. That's really an effective means of signaling the importance of that work. And that's going to take me to our first informal formal poll that's anonymous. So I'm going to launch this through Zoom so you should see it pop up. And it says, do you have CQI as part of your job description? This is anonymous, so please be honest. I see people voting coming in. I'm really curious to know who has CQI a part of their job description. Yes, no, not sure. Those are your options. Give it a few seconds. I see quite a bit of people are voting. I have about 73%, 77% of people voting. Oh, it's interesting, the mix. I can't wait to share and end the poll to share the results with you guys. So I'll give it a couple more seconds. And if you aren't able to see the poll, feel free. If you're comfortable, it's an anonymous poll, but if you want to drop your vote in the chat, you can definitely do that as well. So do you have CQI as part of your job description? Give it a couple more seconds. See the votes kind of starting to slow down. There is one winner, but it could still kind of, if a couple more people vote in another way, it could tip the tide, tip the vote. Okay, looks like everybody's voted that wants to vote. Here we go. Ending poll, sharing results, and the no's have it, but it's by a close margin. So 43% of y'all said that CQI is not in your job description, with 38% of you saying yes, and about 20% not sure. All right, so thank you for sharing that. I think that's kind of a good little temperature check of who actually has that in their job description? Who has CQI part of that? And I appreciate seeing what Stephanie Lopez put in the chat, where it's, the word CQI aren't used, but the principles are part of the job description. And so that's a good distinction. So is it the label of CQI, or is it the functions of what that CQI is, that you want to kind of consider? Because that kind of also goes into like, how formal is our CQI process? So kind of taking all that into consideration. Alrighty, and then I see Sheena's comment on, I wonder if the not sure is showing the data is in the description, but CQI necessarily isn't. So yeah, there could be a couple of considerations of being not sure. So thanks for that poll. We'll do a couple more informal polls too, so hang on tight for those. So another part of CQI culture is that leaders and managers can establish a CQI culture by finding ways to embed data into regular routines, practices, and behaviors. And I think this is what Stephanie was referencing about, having that function, having that described in your job description, even if it's not labeled as CQI, because you want to embed that into your work, into your workflow. So leaders signal willingness to use data to make decisions and changes. And a strong CQI culture really requires leadership's behavior that show that data used is reinforced, encouraged, and expected. So the leadership sets the tone, and another way they do this is by allowing staff to devote time to creating, executing, and maintaining that CQI system. And time was a big thing that came up as a challenge at the very beginning, but we know that that is so critical to have the time to do this. But that extends beyond kind of just this time to do this. It includes, being able to have time to collect data, to enter data, to analyze, to interpret, and then use the data. So it's the whole data life cycle that we have to have enough time for. So allowing time is a huge signal of leadership buy-in and a strong CQI culture. While data collection might occur within service delivery, time must be spent to analyze it, to interpret it, and then also to think of solutions, or think of, reflect on that data. So another thing about strong CQI culture is that time is also a resource. So we have to require committing resources to this CQI culture. So incorporating data reports and discussions into regular staff meetings really can provide that signal that this is a strong CQI culture. So incorporating processes to recognize and reward learning and reward data use behaviors can just strengthen and help sustain your CQI work over the long run. And a strong CQI culture creates opportunities for everyone to ask questions, own up to mistakes, flag opportunities for improvement, or make suggestions. Staff should really feel comfortable discussing whatever the data might disclose about their performance or the program's operation without fear. And I think this is going to be a thread that you maybe will see from this core component over into a couple of others. It's just people being comfortable talking and questioning their data. And then the other kind of important best practice within CQI culture is this, that we engage stakeholders. So external stakeholders such as clients or other community members is really important to be able to reflect on what's their experience within your services or within their experience with your agency. So having, engaging stakeholders. So the other really important area of a CQI process is that CQI team, because the team maintains the system. So remember, it's a human-driven cyclical process. The team reviews the data and makes recommendations on improvement. The key theme we recommend for the CQI team is that it should be diverse, representing all different departments and levels within the organization. This will really ensure that there's input from people who are in that direct and indirect role. So frontline staff are going to have a completely different experience than people that maybe manage the program, or people who raise funds for the program, or your human resources office. So, and you'll want to think about having the right people who are on your team. The team should get to the point where they feel comfortable sharing data, offering ideas for improvement, being able to speak freely in a safe environment. That's really critical to the success. And then the team needs to have some authority within the organization to make recommendations and see those recommendations implemented within the programs. So maybe that's not the best fit for your CEO to be on the team, but maybe the team needs to report directly to the CEO or some executive that's tasked with overseeing the programs. Otherwise, the team is just kind of, treading water, running their, wasting their time discussing, but never being able to make any changes. And then finally, the team needs to be able to set a schedule for how often they look at and review the outcomes and outputs from your data. At a minimum, the team should review data on a quarterly basis, but it's likely that you might be reviewing data at different frequencies, different intervals. And so that comes to our next poll. So our next poll, let me go to the next poll. Oh, I was sharing results that whole time. I'm so sorry. Alrighty, here we go. Our next poll. How often do you review data with your CQI team? So are you reviewing it weekly, maybe monthly, so 12 times a year, maybe every other month, 6 times a year, maybe you're doing it quarterly, maybe you're just doing yearly or annually. Maybe you're never reviewing your data. Hey, it's an anonymous poll, so you can own up to if you never look at your data or you're not sure. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to give a few more moments for folks to vote. But there's about 2 options that are kind of coming at the top. So I'll give a few more moments. How often are you reviewing your data with your CQI team? That's the question on the table and in the poll. Folks are still voting. Okay. Got a few more people. I'm going to give it another couple of seconds. There's a firm winner, so I'm going to end poll, share results, and here we are, monthly. So 36% of people that voted are reviewing their data monthly, with 19% reviewing quarterly, 14% are reviewing it weekly, and then we have about 5% that are reviewing it yearly, 10% reviewing it never, and 14% unsure, or they're not sure. So thanks for being honest there and being, kind of voting in that you never review your data or you're not sure. And hats off to those that are looking at it monthly. I know that takes a lot of time. And so that really signals a commitment that your organization has to looking at your data and using your data. So with that, we're going to go back into another breakout room as well. And so, sorry. You'll want to navigate over there. And again, this will be from the large, medium, and small size nonprofit. You should be able to go back into your breakout room. And this time you'll have about 10 minutes. So a little less time than you had the first round, but you'll have about 10 minutes to go in and talk about what are your tips or suggestions to support a CQI culture and a CQI team. And so you'll be doing this from your medium, large, and nonprofits and the different sizes of a nonprofit. And over here you'll have the second slide on the Google Deck to use. You'll have that big white paper, that big white Post-it note to kind of write your thoughts. Before we go to that, I'm going to see check in the chat. If there's any questions before I open the breakout rooms, please feel free. Yeah, I see Michael's bringing up a good point about the distinction between formal and informal reviews because both can cause program changes. Great note. Yeah, there's a lot that can be said there. And so hopefully y'all can kind of have that as like your tips and suggestions about informal versus formal reviews of your data when you think of it from the perspective of your CQI team and your CQI culture. So with that, I'm going to open the breakout rooms and we'll see you guys in about 10 minutes. And I think some of you just joined us. And so if you want to let us know, you should see maybe a pop-up to go into a break. Welcome back. Hi, Josephine. All right, folks are joining back in from the breakout rooms. Thanks for coming back. Good to see y'all. People are coming in. It's populating. I'm going to share screen so we can dive back in our last time we have here together. Welcome back. Hi. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming back in. Glad Zoom pushed you back into the main room. So glad you guys are back with us. Let me kind of check. Looks like quite a bit are coming back in. So here I'll have again one group share out, share what are their tips and suggestions, and I think I'm going to pick the medium nonprofit. So I have you guys up on the screen. So anyone from medium nonprofit would like to share what are your tips and suggestions for the CQI team and culture?
Okay, I can report out. So we talked about, you'll see it throughout here, just ensuring that basically we started with that upper management understands what CQI means, but then later we also said make sure that you have staff buy-in and understanding. So basically, making sure that everybody at your agency really understands CQI, and then also making sure that you have representation across all levels and departments within the agency for your CQI team. Put CQI information in a working document so it can be shared out with others. So like, how do you distribute that information? Several people talked about meeting monthly. So setting aside that time, identifying one person responsible for collecting data and then sharing out with the team, and that can rotate or be the same person. And then I'm going to skip one for a second. Using the full name instead of the acronym only, because this reminds everyone what it is. So, we get so used to just saying CQI, but sometimes we can lose the value in what that is. And then I'm going to put them on the spot, but boys, Big Brothers Big Sisters shared that they do a once a week all staff huddle with different team members report on weekly numbers, and it doesn't have to be numbers from their department. It's just a number that they want to research and report out, and they use the word own, and then they explain the story behind that number. And so that really helps with that buy-in. So I think that's everything, but feel free to jump in if anyone else thinks I missed something.
Yeah, that's great, Tracy. Thanks. I was kind of pausing to see if anybody else wanted to share in and chime in. That's great to hear. Love that example. So thank you so much. So we're going to go back in to kind of what are we looking at here with those core components, and what do those look like in the work. And so I'm going to launch another poll before we start in on this one. So this one is another truth moment here. Let's be real. Do you have a CQI plan? Yes, no, not sure. And when I'm saying a CQI plan, I'm saying a formalized document, just like Tracy was mentioning, where it's, you have something that everybody has access to. Do you have a CQI plan? Yes, no, not sure. Seeing folks vote. Thank you all for voting. More and more voting. We've only had the poll open for a couple of seconds, but there is a firm winner. But I'll give a few more people voting just in case it starts to shift, because it's shifting a little bit. So, okay. Give a few more moments. Okay, give a couple more seconds if you want to vote. Let me check the chat to see if anybody's, truth saying in the chat. All right. I'm going to end poll and share results. So here it looks like the no's have it. 44% say they do not have a CQI plan. 33% say yes, they do. And 23% aren't sure. And I love in the chat, we have a process we follow, but it's not written and formalized. And Amanda Hampton, I love this question. For those that have a formalized plan, can you share it? And if you're comfortable sharing that, if you want to have it kind of an open document for others to see, would encourage you to post it on our Teams channel. So that way we have it there to share and people can access it from that avenue. So let's talk about this CQI plan. So a CQI culture is documented with a formalized CQI plan. The plan should be accessible to everyone and stored in a place that they all know where to access it. It's not collecting dust on a bookshelf, or you can't find it in your electronic files. It should be something that's, you access and you reference. It should include the purpose and the intent of your CQI process and your culture. So by purpose, I mean the why. Like, why are we doing this? How is this linked to our vision, our mission? And then on the other side of that, it should be the who, what, when, and where. This is really critical to ensuring that it's a formal process and not informal. So kind of like earlier to the point of, well, we have formal and informal ways we talk about our data. For your CQI plan, it should be formalized. And you should use it to actively document your process, your protocols, and your procedures. Knowing that all of those change and that this is a living and dynamic process, you should be updating your CQI plan as things are changing and evolving. And you might have some documents that support your CQI plan, like your logic model, your client workflow, or maybe even a data dictionary. That can all help explain your systematic lens of how you're doing what you're doing with your data and with your work. Um, and this is also really extremely valuable during staff turnover, or when you have new staff come in. But also is helpful when you have a new program. If you have this CQI plan established, then your new program can be a little easily folded into your CQI culture. And then we want to update this regularly. So United Way standards is that it should be updated at least every 2 years, but the reality is it really needs to be updated like every 6 months to a year. Really, as you're making changes to something, you want to document that in your CQI plan. Because your team should be regularly checking in on your plan and your progress. And oftentimes there's going to be a lead author, just like you have a lead of your CQI team, but maybe your CQI plan has 1 or 2 lead authors, but everybody's responsible for content and updates. The material should really be built in and created by your CQI team. So moving on to there into that data, data fuels the CQI team. So the data should be collected, should be directly tied to the program and the work that you're doing, and it should be analyzed regularly. Data should be used by all staff. So while a lot of agencies or programs have the data person, you really want to have the data accessible and used by all staff. And so here is my last poll question for you. Would you consider yourself a data person? Yes, no, somewhat. All right, so we got quite a few folks voting. Thanks, guys. I'm going to give it a little bit more time and just be honest here. Would you consider yourself a data person? Yes, no, somewhat. We're seeing folks share in. Going to give it a few more moments. Yeah, and Heidi's bringing up a good point that maybe I'll have her speak out to here in a moment about the acronym. There should be an option to say absolutely. Yeah, great. Going to give a few more moments. Looks like quite a few people are voting, and I think it's an interesting result. I'm very eager to share it, but I'm going to give it a couple more seconds to see. Okay, I'm going to end poll, share results. The yes has it, but by picture, what's the picture finish result, by a hair, by a slim margin. So 48% say yes, they would consider themselves a data person, with 46% saying somewhat and 7% saying no. So thanks you guys for sharing that. Photo finish, yes, that's the word, thank you. It's a photo finish, 48% yes, 46% somewhat. And I think that's really telling because, it's all about how comfortable we are with data. And so you might be part of your agency CQI team, or you might be the lead of your agency CQI team, and how comfortable with you are with data, and then how is that reflected within your whole organization. So as staff are more comfortable with accessing data and having the conversation, they should feel empowered to participate in those conversations and bring curiosity where it's encouraged. And it's through those data conversations that data can be used to make informed operational and programmatic decisions and changes, and then also create the opportunity for identifying targets that build on the annual success and challenges, where you can incorporate that into your program planning and your strategic planning. So great comments coming in there. And I think before we go on to our next one, I do want to kind of give a moment to something coming up in the chat. I think, Heidi, it started from something you asked is, does anyone find that the use of the acronym undermines the employee understanding of the why and owning the CQI process? We saw this with the PSCs too. And then I think you go, we use design thinking approach was a continuous and iterative improvement process. So if you would like to share out more, I'd love to hear from you for a moment. Yeah, because what is PSCs? Yes, also
PSCs are policy systems and environmental improvements, and there are three like big bucket ways of creating change in communities. And we found with our teams, when we reverted to PSCs, then the distinction between those strategies and why we were doing each one, why you would select one versus another, was really lost. And I think language really helps to frame our thinking and the way we engage with things so much. And I just wonder, kind of listening to some of the chat and the discussions throughout this time, if y'all aren't seeing some of that, you can see that while we have continuous improvement processes, that we're not using this terminology exactly. This is quite different. Jessica, you and I know each other. You know that you know the work that I'm referring to here, and it's not a proper organization. It's a coalition that I'm co-leading. So we have a little bit different processes, and I'm trying to connect some of the dots here and learn, because I think it's critical to work that we're doing in this space.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's great. And I think somebody's asking you to put PSCs in the chat again. If you could type that in the chat, they didn't catch it.
Yes.
I heard environment is the last piece. And I think a couple of things come up for me around that is that, United Way has tried to create a common language and a shared language around this act of using data to improve programs and processes, and so whether that's through the CQI culture or CQI, or maybe it's through quality management. If you are a healthcare provider, you're probably very well aware with quality management. And then this policy systems and environmental, the PSC that you talk of. There also might be some folks who are like doing agile, so trying to like iterate and continuously adapt and adjust, as you're doing your work. And I love in here that calling it a process improvement team sounds great. I think it's how does this fit into your agency's culture? Because at the end of the day, it's about that definition. So it's the systematic use of data to improve programs and services and communicate the value. So we could be doing that a bunch of different hats or different dresses, if you will. But at the end of the day, that's kind of the work that we're all trying to do, is use our data to be more informed and to offer quality services, to create those great opportunities for clients that we serve, but then also for our communities. So really appreciated that moment, like trying to connect all these connections and all these dots. Great. And I think that goes into this other one, this last kind of area of, a CQI culture. The work of CQI, it really values learning and growth. And that's really essential to CQI. Like I often hear like, oh, we're going to this training on trauma-informed care, or we're doing this training on motivational interviewing. But we also should be looking at, well, how are we continuing our learning and trainings with using our data, with doing this kind of work? And so it's one thing to collect data, but it's the other to really shift and use the data in your work and in your programs and agencies. And so the best CQI cultures really value learning. And research shows that an organizational culture that values learning can be a key facilitator of data use for continuous quality improvement. And this really should be championed across your organization by staff. So you'll see that organizations that have those strong CQI cultures, everybody's a part of it, even if they're not on the quote unquote CQI team. Organizations that foster a learning culture also have staff who are interested in applying that learning, what they've learned to improve the organization, their program, maybe even their own individual performance. They're cheerleaders for using data. They also, CQI culture should support ongoing learning about services, communities, and clients. And you serve as you're continuously changing, right? So they're curious about how are things going, what's happening, how do we get better for our clients? How do we get better at making an impact? They're asking those questions. They're being really curious. And then they reflect on that learning. So oftentimes, time is critical. Time is of the essence. But if we allot time to reflect and to take what we've learned and to see, did it work? Did it not work? That's really critical to CQI culture. So we often just don't have time to do that. And so we want to spend time doing that. And I love this quote. So I would love to say that I found this quote from the Moran Institute that says that an organization's culture should encourage people to ask questions, to seek advice, to do research, improve what they do and how they do it, help each other, push each other, probe, nudge, adapt, look at things from different vantage points. It's when we take that, we have that motivation and that passion around using data to improve our work, that's where we're going to see the greatest success. So I was going to try to do another breakout room, but I'm very mindful of time. So we're going to do a chatter fall. And so this one is, United Way, we have these different avenues for trainings, but would really be curious beyond United Way's supported trainings, how are you supporting your own personal knowledge and learning? And then how are you supporting your staff's learning? Your staff's learning and knowledge. So you can chatter fall. So chatter fall is just typing in the chat. But would love also if somebody wants to share out, what are they doing to continue their own learning? I'm imagining you are all typing in the chat. Oh, here we go. Yay, Chatterfall. So it's all going to happen fast. So I'll start at the top. We do monthly trainings at staff meetings. The leadership at UEI have recently had a staff summit, an educational wish list that was pretty cool. Ooh, Michael, I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you name something on that educational wish list?
Certainly. Let's see. For me, it was a professional HR training is what I wanted to do. Our accountant, he submitted links to QuickBooks Online stuff that he wanted to learn. And I think another couple of the staff members, they pointed out some other trainings they wanted to do, like for certifications that they could use in working with our students.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for sharing. And I think that ties closely to the next one underneath that is tuition reimbursement programs. Yeah. I know that's really great for organizations that have that capability. YouTube rocks. Thanks for that one. AMA trainings. Setting up LinkedIn subscriptions for staff and encourage them to use it during times of COVID. Yes, Jeff, thank you. United Way does that. And that's LinkedIn learning has been really great. There's a lot of different trainings, a lot of quick ones, long ones. Encourage y'all to check that out. Using my experience, no training available here, so may need to investigate. Yeah, Leslie, definitely trying to find different avenues. Following leader agencies, publications on Twitter, LinkedIn, protecting time each day to read emerging evidence and resources. Oh, I love that, Heidi. I wish I need to like block. I always have it on my wish list of blocking time on my calendar every day to look at evidence and look at new resources. Free trainings through our partnerships with Get Together, membership to Right Now Media and Learn HR for Training Online, reading and trainings webinars, attending webinars, seeing a theme coming up here. Oh yeah, Glasscock School for Nonprofit Management. Yeah, there's a great thing. So thanks for the shout out for United Way. Rice Youth continuing education sessions. Yeah, great stuff. Thanks. Glad we had that little like chatterfall moment there. Anyone else want to share aloud verbally how they're helping themselves or staff with continuing their learning and growth? Okay, no worries. We're at the end. We're towards the tail end. So glad you guys. I know it's a Thursday morning. I'm sure you have a lot of other things to do, so I'm glad you could join us today. And I want to take the next few minutes or so for you to just have like a little self-reflection moment. So I'd like for you to write down what are your pluses or positives about your agency's CQI system, and then what are the things that you want to change with your agency's CQI system. And then I encourage you when we get done, because we'll wrap up a little bit early today. That's my gift to you is a little time back. Is to call somebody, phone a friend, call somebody from your agency, maybe your or go talk to somebody if you're at the office and just share something that you heard today or something that you want to take back in, so that way you can continue this because it's a continuous conversation. Encourage you to continue to bring this back into your work. So let me give you a couple moments. While you're doing that, I'm going to put in the chat the feedback for today is your feedback is a gift. Give you all a couple moments to do that. No worries. I won't make you say that aloud. Definitely just an opportunity. Yeah, thanks. But thanks for putting that in the chat, Amanda. Yeah, need to put together a formal CQI plan. Yeah, definitely have to formalize it. Have to have some kind of be on a paper, be in a document, so it continues to live on and it's solidified. All right. So with that, I've dropped the feedback form in the chat. I hope you guys will give us your feedback. I'm continuously using your feedback to improve coffee and quality. We also have the QR code up, so you could hold your phone up with the camera, kind of like you're taking a picture. The QR code will pop up, and you'll be able to go directly to the feedback for survey. This was our May session. We'll be back together in July for qualitative data for program improvement. And we have a evaluator from San Antonio that's coming in to share with us how she's using qualitative data in her evaluations and for program improvement. So I'm really excited for Moira to join us in July, and that's July 15th from 9 to 10:30. All right. So that's 10:20. I'm going to give you 10 minutes back, but please, as the return gift, do my feedback form. Give me your feedback. Let me know how it's going for today. I'm really glad that everybody joined in. I will stop sharing, and I hope everybody has a great day. If you want to stick around, you have questions, you have thoughts, I'm here too. So thanks, you guys. Have a good day. Yeah. Okay. Hey, Haley. Hi, Keith. Thanks, you guys.